There we go. This is supposed to be on par with, say, the Stanley Parable. I think it's made by the same people, even. But then again, I'm not completely sure. Again, I have not played this. Not personally. Okay. There we go. That is a very good question. I do not know how they price games separately and how they price them as a bundle. I don't know. Oh, buy them each separately. So anyway, shall we get started? I think we shall. Please make sure audio is on. I don't know, is the audio on, guys?
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing The Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Reedon. I wrote The Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make.
Let me know if
so
this is too loud
just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveyWreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed.
You
This
could've at
first one
least
was made in
let me
November
explore more.
2008.
That was, you know.
Warning. Whisper machine active.
Okay.
Destruction imminent.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
Okay, hang on. Yeah, that did get a little bit loud. Let's actually put captions up just in case. Okay, is that better for everybody? I'm out of weapons. My shoot man is empty. I put some nice holes in the wall. I think I killed his narration though. Let's restart.
Warning. Whisper machine active. Shift destruction imminent.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
So is this sound level better for everybody?
You can click to fire the gun.
Security call breached. Hostile alien life form inbound.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets.
I noticed.
But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin chute evacuation.
Can I go now? I can't, okay.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
That is a pretty nice call out, yes. Boy, that kind of gives you some perspective, don't it? The universe has a corner, and it is up there.
Apparently this space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
What? Can I go back?
Or, if you'd really like to solve the labyrinth, you're welcome to do that too.
Yeah, he did write the Stanley Parable, didn't he? Part of it, anyway. Okay.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The game has this narrative about the Whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the Whisper machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature. If your body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
This is a trap, isn't it? I don't have a choice. Oh good, I'm going to power this death beam up, aren't
This is
I?
not a branching point, unfortunately. The only option is to step into the beam. Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Should have done the maze. I should have. Ha! Oh, there's the maze.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it. Like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and
You
experimental
could just follow
designs.
the right wall.
So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
Universe has corners and seams. Great, we moved from the universe to an underground bunker? The past was behind her. We can't move. We can move
Yep.
backwards.
In this game, you can only walk backwards.
Uh-huh. You know, there's a part of me...
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Coda's trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
Okay, that wall doesn't actually touch. I was starting to wonder. Huh. That's... I can't go forward? I guess hindsight is 20/20. Okay, nothing changed in there. Future's always behind her. How will she find the strength?
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out
Could
quick.
have used a goal.
Okay, next one.
Oh god, he made Slender Man. can only move... You know, I played a game called The Path at one point, right? You're taking the concept a bit too far. Can't jump at least, still.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
I was waiting for something to jump out at me. Then again, I did just play Little Nightmares, so you know.
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games. I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, like, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
It's not exactly a terrible mindset. Don't look back and get stuck wanting to perfect stuff you've already worked on. Work on it, finish it, move on to the next thing.
I know it's tempting, but there's actually nothing over here. Sorry.
But good, let me explore. You jerk. Anything over here? These seem more like it's just learning to build the environment. Not even learning to Unity, it's more like learning to, you know, design levels. Which if it is, this is terrible level design. A whole bunch of little hidden areas that kind of invite you to explore hold absolutely nothing to reward you for doing so. Oh yeah, I'm fully aware level design is part of the learning process. Up the stairs with us. Let's go. Jump, jump, jump.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Hey, just what I wanted. Orange Islands.
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games.
Huh.
Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
A lot of those are some very interesting ideas for games. I wonder how many of them actually ended up getting made. Okay, those look just like rivets or something, just rebar or something in the concrete. Thought there were bullet holes for a second.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it.
It's a switch. That's it. It's a switch. Aha.
Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're gonna see it a lot.
Why are there 3 dots here? What does the number 3 represent, man?
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Wow.
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
Oh God, we're back here. Maybe you are now exiting. Okay.
Aha. So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the Stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Lovely descent. So there's a house. And there are hills. The ground is not flat. I think with that last one, well, not the last one, but the one before it, he might have put all that stuff there thinking he was going to make
Let's talk
some
about video game development for a second. Every
great,
video game runs on
game,
what's called an engine, which determines
section.
what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development.
Uh-huh.
To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well. The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Only give me the one door, huh? That I can just barely fit through. I don't think we're hating on Source. I think it's just said, hey, Source has limitations and it has... Whee! Where are we going? all the way down, apparently. To another second level. Huh. I'm glad I took the quick way down. See, I don't know enough about the Source engine to actually hate on it. I don't know much about any game engine, because it's not exactly something I've ever actually dealt with. This looks like kettle pins. Nope, it closed me in. Great, I'm cattle now. Moo. Yeah, very boxy, very linear. Hey, I don't want to go that way. And this really is a Stanley Parable. Oh, okay. Yep, I'm cattle. Moo.
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that.
Please.
This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere.
Trolling, you're doing it right. But what would be the point of a game if you couldn't play it? I mean, if you're gonna make a game, you should at least be able to play it in some aspect. Otherwise, why make a game? Why not just make a movie? Yeah, he got severely trolled. Didn't quite make that transparent. You can play Zero Time Dilemma. We played 4 freaking escape rooms in the last stream. Hey, that's back. That little pattern on the wall. Waiting for spikes to pop out or something. Then again, Coda does not seem...
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
Yeah, I have no idea what's making that puzzle special. And so far he's only used it twice. I wouldn't call it over and over. Oh god, I'm locked in. I'm locked in with what look like they could be Doctor Who villains. I think he has those boxes backwards.
Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
Huh. Fortunately, you can't solve the puzzle from this side. Uh-huh.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
Big old courtyard.
It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason Coda fixates on this lamppost.
Maybe
It's
he
going
likes
to
the
appear
design.
at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination.
Or
We're going to
he
see it in the
just
work as well.
thought
His
it
games
was a
are just
nice
going to
little
become
way
a
to
lot
say,
more
yes, you finished
cohesive,
the game.
a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Maybe he got tired of people saying, yeah, but I don't know when I'm done. So he threw in a lamppost. Oh great, we're playing Dark Souls. Okay, somebody didn't like this room.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually.
You can't walk off. That's a lot of notes.
Oh, feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played. But it's ironic, isn't it, that in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
You will believe blue speech bubbles can talk. Okay. Guess the question is, where do I actually have to go? It's not gonna let me. Yeah, it doesn't let me go that way. Jump down from up here. No. Ah. Oh, kind of buried one. At least a stress ball, you know? At least a stress ball. A stress ball shaped like one of these things, if nothing else. That's a good question. Cabbage shaped ornation. Yeah, I'm just. Not safe. From what? Fake it till you make it. Oh, you cannot fall off. No, it won't come back. Some of these are a little bit worrisome to read. Just a little bit. We will all die someday. Cabbage shapes our nation again. Okay. Yeah, more than likely, yeah, these bubbles would just be memes. Memes and asking for thumbs up. We all float down here. Can't go that way.
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one.
Oh God, we are getting Slender Man. Don't embrace the cabbage. Embrace the fun you're in, pa.
In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on.
Help.
And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here. To step back and connect the pieces together. To grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
We can embrace the note bowl. Oh God, we've got a million monkeys on a million machines. We're gonna get Shakespeare's work, aren't we? Well, no monkeys, but a bunch of machines. All work and no play. Porn stars died.
This one is tough.
Okay.
It's gonna kind of just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Yeah, it's pretty, but is it art?
See, like, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway.
And
Except,
then
for some reason,
you are sealed
Coda gets
in.
really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
The infinite spung monkey theorem. Yeah, how about TV? That's not a TV. Let's go with tin stoves. That's not tin stoves, Coda. Live Tesla coils. That's just a lamp. Tables were invented in 1935. I don't think that one fits with...
There's a bit more to this one, but still, it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake. So, okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
Uh-huh. Click to turn slightly. Turn the floor lamp off and on. And hit shelves. Uh-huh. A real prison, the escape will now open. I forgot some of that.
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this. To see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But
Is it
Coda
upside down?
doesn't have that voice telling you to stop. That particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going, and then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
So, if the prison isn't in it, how's it a prison game? Could use a light. Thank you. Huh.
It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
I don't know if Coda's heard of the internet. Morphogenetic field.
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself? To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between.
Oh, good, it's this guy again. And the door closed behind us.
You'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
It's the bathroom. Yeah. And I wish chores were over this quick. Huh?
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful. I know that Coda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was, like, grossly happy all the time. Just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
Say, Blockhead over here hasn't done a thing. He's just standing there while this house just mysteriously keeps messing itself up.
I'm glad he found some peace. But, of course, it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
Hopefully the bed stays made and the rug stays, you know, the way it's supposed to. I mean, yes, he was just a blockhead.
Which is the whole point of the puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it. This one gets a bit goofy.
This one? We're listening to a lecture. And we're apparently jumping chairs. Nope, no one else in here. Just us getting lectured to about being perfect. Who only has talk for a head. Okay, Shia LaBeouf.
About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts. And you play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are.
Huh.
Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
You wouldn't want to do some ecstasy after this? don't think he's, paying attention.
I felt pretty hard for this one. I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days.
I think ecstasy was the cause of that guy
This
seeing the
one
black
took a lot
hole.
longer than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Okay, so we're not doing the prison puzzle there. Starting to look like, yeah, stage. Can't climb the ladder? No? Okay. It's like the stage will advance things. It's time to put on makeup. Time to light the lights. Uh-huh. Where's the bathroom? Oh, seriously, where are all the bathroom? Yeah, where is it? Said that he uses the lamppost to... Wow, that was sudden. Things escalated quickly. Okay. Oh, good. Now it's a cage. It was a stage, now it's a cage. And we found the lamppost. Oh, might as well go this way.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. the solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer. But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
We must keep our eyes closed. I don't think this is helping. Is there something going on? I actually have my eyes closed. Not like
You should
helps.
probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
Yeah. Huh.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way. His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
way, this guy needs something.
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for? Because from my perspective at the time, and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on. You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
But it's not.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering. This is someone I really cared about, and I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me. I don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop.
Yeah, this is... I can't even say this is a cry for help. That's about what it is, right there.
But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
We're up to 2011. Boy, Coda really likes that humanoid design, doesn't he? Ooh, boy.
And of course, it's the machine.
He's beating up on himself in a very, representative sense. But yeah, he's just he's acting like his video games are blaming him for not being able to get, back on track. Machine's not actually going to answer, is it? Oh, good. Back to the stage.
Remember, you can click to fire the gun.
I don't have anything to fire at.
So now the work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that Code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work?
He's pulling every game he's ever designed up, huh?
So I started showing Coda's work to people. I took this one, and the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
I can't move. All I can do is shoot.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good.
Yeah, that you're not him.
When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something... I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem. When they told me how much they enjoyed his games, it was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy, so beautifully, beautifully happy.
But it didn't go the way you thought it did.
So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower. And to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made.
Congratulations,
So
you
let's take
just
a look.
downloaded the virus. Something like that? Road to hell is paved with good intentions. Something tells me you screwed everything
And this is
up.
where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, the tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world.
From you.
It's a very cold game.
I just get the feeling Coda sent this to him to say goodbye. You know?
This room actually has a maze in it. Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise, so the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played, it actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press enter and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
Stanley Parable walls.
And to be fair, it's not like this is the first game that's needed some modification to be playable. Like the house cleaning game. You know, that one used to actually loop the cleaning chores and you just cleaned a house forever. I had to cut it off so that you could exit the house and the game would actually end. But that game had an idea that it was actually trying to communicate. What's the deeper idea behind the invisible maze? The only way past this challenge is to randomly guess the 6-digit code. Like the Invisible Maze, it's frustrating to me, because it's the opposite of everything else that Coda has made. It doesn't encourage thought or engagement. It doesn't ask anything of me, except a lot of my time. If I could have reached him during this time, then maybe I could have asked him.
I think he just modded the
still
game
don't really
before
understand why
this.
this is
Before this whole thing, not
I'll put the
before he
code on
showed
the
it to
ground for
other
you here, though,
people.
so that we can move on.
I don't think he modded the game before he gave it to other people to, spread the word around back then. I think he just did it here so we could actually move on and he could tell the story he wanted to tell without being stuck in a game that literally never ended. '15, 16, 17, huh? Down we go.
The switch to open this door is actually on the other side of the door, meaning that it's literally impossible to solve from this side. So even if you somehow brute forced your way through the first 2 challenges and you got to this point, there's actually just no way to progress. And it's scary for me, the idea of Coda cutting himself off entirely, just saying, that's it, that's the end of the conversation, not giving me any way to fix the problem. I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem.
Because this isn't about you.
But I can open this door for you, so let me do that.
Sorry, this guy's kind of
Was
a
I
jerk.
failure for not understanding this game? I
think
don't know
you
why
were
I
a
would
failure
be. It's not
for
like
making
everything
some
needs to have a
assumptions.
solution, but I feel it somehow. I feel like I failed, and I don't understand why. I remember, it's June of 2011. I'm playing this for the very first time. And as I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know this person.
No.
I have no
obviously
idea
not.
who this person is. It wasn't the guy I knew. It wasn't my friend. I had come to so many conclusions from looking at all of his work up to this point, and then suddenly none of them... I had been trying to, though. That was the thing. For years, I was trying to get to know him, to understand who he actually was and what he stood for. I asked him so many times to please just tell me what his games mean to him. I asked him please to tell me what the 3 dots mean.
Granted,
And he
I did
wouldn't.
want to know that myself. This is one hell of a tower, alright. Yeah, the little 3-dot pattern that popped up several times.
I just felt so strongly that if I could have connected with him, that if I could have somehow made his work my own, that I would finally be once and for all happy. It was that I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me. But he stopped and left, and it felt somehow like I had failed.
You could start by apologizing.
Where did I screw up?
You want me to start counting off the reasons and the ways?
I'm the reason that you stopped making games, aren't I?
Yep.
It's because of what I did.
Yep.
I poisoned it for you.
Yep.
I don't think I ever told you this, but when I took your work and I was showing it to people, it actually felt... it felt as though I were responsible for something important and valuable.
Yeah.
And the people who played them, they treated me like I was
Oh,
important.
good. At least he does
They
seem
really
like
listened
he
and
gets
cared
it.
about what I had to say. Even though I was showing your work, it was... I felt good about myself. Finally. For a moment, while I had that, I liked myself.
I'm glad at least he came to the right conclusion. It looks like we're actually getting there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the lampposts were only really added for Clueless Dude here.
And then you stopped. And I didn't have anything left to show people. I just had to be with myself. And as soon as that happened, there was no feeling at all. Nothing. Less than nothing. What does that mean?
I don't know, when you make an entire game about prisons like that one, that says something. It actually does. Boy, I hope you took this lesson to heart.
I'm afraid that I did something really stupid because I don't like myself. That's why I'm releasing this collection of your work, is because I haven't been able to find any other way to reach you. I've tried everything. And so a part of me has hope that if I put this compilation out into the world, and if I put my name on it, that maybe enough people will play it so that it'll find its way to you, so that I can tell you that I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. If I apologize to you truly and deeply, will you start making games again? Please, I need to feel okay with myself again. And I always felt okay as long as I had your work to see myself in. I mean,
The walls are closing in.
is something wrong with me? Because I know that I did an awful thing, and I'm doing it again right now. Like, I'm showing people your work, but I can't stop myself from doing it. That's how badly I need to feel something again, like I'm an addict. There has to be something wrong with me. Can I apologize? What if I tell you I was wrong? Will that work? Will that fix it? I don't know. I don't think it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. Just tell me what you want. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, start making games again. Please help me. Please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete. I want whatever that wholeness is that you just summoned out of nothing and you put into your work. You were complete in some way that I never was. And I want to know I want to know how to be a good person. I want to know how not to hate myself. Please. I'm fading, and all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay. more. More love, more praise, more people telling me that I'm good. Always more. It's like a disease. Solution. I guess if someone had told me ahead of time that he just really enjoyed making prison games, maybe I wouldn't have thought he was so desperate. I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Maybe he just likes making prisons.
So that was the cry for help I got earlier. Okay, that actually makes sense. Cry for help, hoping that dude here would understand. But he never got it.
Even now, the disease is telling me to stop. Don't show people what a shitty person you are. They'll hate you.
Boy, need a broom in here. I wonder if this is actually a real story. You know, based in reality, or if this is all just made up for the narrative.
If I knew that my life depended on finding something to be driven by other than validation, what would that even be? It's strange, but the thought of not being driven by external validation is unthinkable. Like, I actually cannot conceive of what that would be like. What now? I think I need to go. And I'm sorry, because I know that I said that I would be here and I would walk you through this, but I'm starting to feel like I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot that I need to make up for, and so I'm just gonna... Okay.
Any reason I have to go through the... Is this the game crashing on me? I think the game crashed. Nope, okay. It just didn't react when I poked the window again. Okay. I honestly thought I did something when I walked around the arch. Well, gate thing. Instead of through it. That just seems like one of those things that the developers behind the Stanley Parable would put into a game. Whee! Huh. Obviously, we need to go that way. I don't see any other ways. Okay, it did stop. I was wondering if it was going to try and crush us. So yeah, it just, you know, I just get this feeling that the story is not a true story. It isn't, you know, a guy actually pouring his heart out or anything like that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me completely if it was. Yeah, it might just be based on something, but... Oh goody, a beam we have to walk into. Are we gonna float up? Pattern recognition. I can do it too. Are we gonna float up or are we gonna die? Both, maybe? Now that is a labyrinth. That is indeed a labyrinth. Okay, the seam is circular this time. There's more than one seam, too. Yeah, I don't think I'm solving that maze anytime soon.
Turn back from this cave.
For R.
You said, let me prove that I'm brave. Let me keep going. But the cave goes for miles and miles.
So I guess that's it. Huh. And we are left with so many questions. What's the chapter select like? Yeah. Huh. Well, that was interesting. Yeah, it would have really, really sucked if that had been the point it crashed, right at the freaking end. Oh yeah, that was a thing. And it is almost midnight. Well, I guess this marks a good spot to actually stop streaming, huh? That's giving me something to think about. Again, funny feeling that that wasn't really based on a true story. I think they just wanted to tell a story about a guy, that was kind of a jerk and got the completely wrong impression about things, and yeah. I think they just wanted to tell that story. Don't get me wrong, that story worked. But anyway. Yeah, let's see. Next week is 4th of July weekend. For those of you not in the U.S., I know at least one of you is not in the U.S., that means we have a nice long weekend. So, Saturday, we will do the Zero Time Dilemma stuff as we follow probably Team D. I think that has more, interest than Team Q. At least among the people that watch stream. And then Sunday, well, we will see about the downloadable content for Little Nightmares. It has the best end ever. It has multiple best endings. And then, well, depending on how long it takes to play through a chapter of the DLC for whatever that was called, Maw of something. Maybe, just maybe, eat your heart out, Team C. There is the very, very slight possibility that, I may actually try to stream one of the Telltale games. I have a few of them that I've never played, so I don't know how good or bad they actually are. But I know it was popular. I haven't seen anything about it, but I was thinking maybe, Really? It's not released? I could have sworn I saw it on the library. Or I saw it in the store page. Oh, maybe next Sunday we will, if there's nothing there, maybe I will see if the Telltale games, maybe because I've heard a lot of good things about it, I know nothing of it, maybe The Wolf Among Us. I've never played it. I know nothing of it. I know I got it as part of a bundle like forever ago and never got around to installing it or anything like that. But maybe we'll see. Like I said, heard good things. Heard bad things. Not many, but good things too. So we'll see if we can see if it follows the usual Telltale mantra and BioWare mantra of choices that look like they're going to matter a whole lot and don't really matter worth anything in the end. Yeah, well. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me. I will see you back next week for more. I gotta get ready to upload the first bit of Zero Time Dilemma in a few minutes. Neat. Anyway, take care, everyone. I will see you back later for more. Bye, all.